Hello, my name is Bill Labaris, Senior Editorial Director at IDG's Custom Solutions Group. I'm also your host and moderator for what I promise will be both an interesting and actionable webcast. I'm going to unveil some noteworthy results of a recent research study undertaken by IDG Research on the primary concerns and motivations for organizations that are making near-term infrastructure decisions. Now, more than 100 top-level IT managers were polled to get this data. Then, we'll hear from a pair of subject matter experts from EMC and Panduit regarding infrastructure solutions, both logical and physical, that provide key insight into the areas the survey showed that IT managers are thinking about the most. It's not a huge surprise to anyone with their finger on the pulse of the IT industry to learn the discussions surrounding growth and change are being fueled by needs to manage huge amounts of new data for storage and recovery, and also determine how their businesses can become more effective utilizing server virtualization and private cloud infrastructure. Organizations are challenged to bring new capabilities into production faster to maximize return on investment for IT investments, driving the need for shorter lead times to design, to specify, and to deploy both the physical and logical infrastructure. The survey results clearly mirror the industry buzz that data growth, virtualization, and private cloud are what companies are thinking about in their near-term planning. At the same time, IT managers are drinking from the proverbial fire hose, learning new concepts, approaches, and technologies, and are naturally concerned about ensuring that the investments they make today don't leave them penniless and unprepared for tomorrow. Our special guest speakers now will talk about how their extensive experience in developing infrastructure solutions for partners has led them to their respective careers in recommending a cost-effective, scalable approach to data management and the cloud. This is accomplished by integrating vSpec's reference architectures into Panduit's pre-configured vSpec's infrastructures. Chad Dunn is vSpec's Business Operations Director from EMC.
Hi, Bill. Thanks for having us.
And Steve Steeves is Global Solutions Marketing Manager from Panduit. Chad Dunn, let's get started with you. Tell us first what vSpec's is and how it relates to resolving some of the deployment issues and headaches that we saw surfaced in our research.
Sure, happy to, Bill. As you said, I'll echo what was in your research reports. We see the majority of our customers transitioning to a cloud architecture for their IT needs. And the key technology that underlies that is, of course, virtualization. And I think that you really have to be under a rock not to know about the traction that virtualization and the transition to cloud computing is having on the IT industry today. But the question then becomes, how do I get to that destination of a private cloud? And for EMC, for years we've talked about that journey to the private cloud, which goes beyond simple virtualization of your workloads toward a model of IT as a service. And all along the way, you're looking for the efficiencies that get you to that destination much more quickly. Now, EMC uniquely offers 3 paths to that private cloud. For years, we and many other vendors have had a build-your-own approach, where you work with a trusted advisor, a systems integrator, subject matter expert to design an IT infrastructure, a private cloud infrastructure that matches your IT needs. A couple of years ago, EMC, Cisco, and VMware got together and decided to build IT infrastructure as a product, and that's what we have in VCE with the vBlock. It's a fully converged infrastructure that's purchased as a product, deploys very quickly, very rapid time to value. But we at EMC felt that there was a middle ground that was left open, and that's based on deploying private cloud using reference architectures that have been proven and tested by EMC and other vendors to get the right user experience for our end users. And uniquely, this offers choice in terms of the virtualization technology that you use, the server, the network technology that you use, but always includes, of course, EMC best-of-breed storage, backup, and recovery solutions.
Yeah, Chad, I think you're spot on correct. And if you go back 7 or 8 years when people started down the virtualization path, they just thought of it as, well, we're going to save a lot of money here, we're going to consolidate a lot of our physical resources, and whereas in reality, it's the foundation for doing the cloud properly.
It really is.
Can you talk a little bit more about vSpec's and the value proposition that it holds forth, both for resellers as well as for end users?
Sure. So let's talk about our resellers first, and this is primarily a channel-led program for us. And what vSpecs does is gives the tools to our channel partners to be able to start with these proven and validated reference architectures that are tested and documented by EMC, and then to be able to add on to them, to customize them and tailor them for their end user needs. So they're able to create differentiation in the vSpec solutions that they create and that they take to market. And that's very important for those channel partners, right? As is the ability to offer services around them, and to be able to sort of move up the pyramid in terms of the services that they offer, away from the simple assembly of an IT solution in hardware, toward helping their customer get to that IT as a service model, which is the promise of private cloud. Now for our end users, it's really about acceleration on that journey, right? Being able to have a channel partner that can start with them with a pre-validated infrastructure and then really help them transform the way their IT organization operates simply accelerates that time to value for them and gives them the confidence to know that that solution was tested and validated by EMC.
And clearly time to market these days is one of those concepts very clearly understood up and down the organization.
Indeed it is.
Not just within IT. Steve's from Panduit. Talk a little bit to us, if you would, about Panduit's pre-configured physical infrastructure, and talk about partner programs here, and what you believe it does to alleviate some of these planning and deployment stresses that, again, that have come up so prominently in the research that we've seen.
Right, thank you, Bill. So Panduit brings to the table pre-configured physical infrastructures that really wrap value around the offerings that VCE and EMC bring to the table. So as people's journey to the cloud, to the private cloud, has changed, first beginning with the single package deployment of a VCE vBlock, of which Panduit has brought the physical infrastructure surrounding those. We've taken that experience and have been able to leverage that to bring now a more customizable pre-configured physical infrastructure to wrap value now around the more customizable, more flexible vSpecs opportunity. So although Panduit knows we're not the star of the show and we're not the person bringing the logical intelligence or the physical or the private cloud to the people, we realize that we bring all of the components necessary on a physical end to properly deploy a private cloud infrastructure using best practices. So now that incorporates a cabinet, but not just a rack. Often people just envision you just need a rack to deploy one of these. Well, when you look at a pre-configured physical infrastructure, you actually are bringing up to 35 different SKUs, and when counting nuts and bolts, up to 250 plus parts to properly deploy a vSpecs in the most optimal fashion. So what Panduit brings to the table is all of those parts together, the cabinet, the cable managers, the bonding and grounding system, which is critical, able to take 30 individual points of bonding and grounding and drill those down to a single point of grounding in each case. Patch panels, everything that can be pre-installed and not get in the way of the active gear installation are brought to the package that Panduit delivers. And then on top of that, all of the connectivity and cabling are provided in a kitted fashion, labeled port to port, for very, very quick deployment of the actual vSpecs. These have been tested and validated and optimized to ensure that there's thermal consistency from front to back, preserving hot and cold aisle. So again, although Panduit's kind of a co-star, without us, the lights don't flash, is what we like to say. We bring everything to the table that enables somebody both to bring their customized preference of how they're going to deploy a flexible vSpecs, and able to do that in a very quick fashion that both enables the partner to do it very quickly. We've got some data that each Panduit pre-configured infrastructure can save 9 to 15 hours per vSpecs deployment. But then it's done not only faster, but in a completely validated and optimized way where they can pass that value along to their customer, the end user, who's going to ensure that their equipment is going to run at the highest level possible.
And just to sort of emphasize an important point that you make, pre-configured is not synonymous in this case with static or unchangeable. You can go in there and make it and customize, as you say.
Well, what we do is like to work with the partners and the end who have the information from their end user of how they want to deploy their vSpecs, and then we will bring the pre-configured that matches those designs. So vSpecs can go in various sizes, and then those sizes are upgradable. And we can talk about scalability in a little bit. But in general, we bring an infrastructure around exactly how the partner wants to deploy the VSpecs to suit their end users' needs.
Chad, how does EMC see Panduit's infrastructure, physical infrastructure for VSpecs as providing additional value for your customers?
Sure. Well, when we talk about VSpecs, we always say simple, efficient, and flexible, right? Simple because we've already built these reference architectures for you, right? Efficient because you're going to deploy it much more quickly, and flexible because you have choice of components that you use in your particular VSpecs, and you're able to differentiate. So at one level, it's simply an accelerator that gets our channel partners to market with a solution that fits their end users much more quickly. But I think Steve was being a little bit modest when he talked about it not being the sexiest part of the configuration. Because one thing that we've done at EMC for the first time ever is actually allowed our channel partners to co-brand these racks. Because we're letting channel partners customize these solutions, bring other components in, hardware, software, to create unique value add or go after specific vertical markets, we also give them the ability to put their brand on these racks as well. So we have many channel partners that differentiate their VSpec solutions from one another. And that's a very important thing as channel partners move up that stack of services and offerings. And Panduit in their physical designs has actually given us the ability to add that EMC, VSpecs, and channel partner branding to the racks that they have. And you can't underestimate how excited that channel partners get when they're able to co-brand these solutions.
Steve, you touched on scalability a little bit. Can you flesh that out a little bit more in terms of the solution that you're bringing to market here?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I like to say is that Panduit is bringing value to the entire life cycle of the VSpecs deployment. From the very onset, even before the components have been purchased to match the reference architecture, we're providing a single SKU methodology for sourcing and ordering it. So that saves the partner immense time alone, even before they've brought the equipment in-house to deploy it. And then, as mentioned before, going to the next phase of the fulfillment and the rack and stack. When they put it all together using the kitted parts, they're saving the hours mentioned before. But then also what Panduit's done, we provide the elevation diagrams in conjunction with the wiring diagrams. So we've used not only best practices for a strategy of how they're going to do the rack and stack within the rack for how the equipment breathes and to ensure that thermal considerations are taken into place, but also we've worked with the EMC engineers to come up with the ideal strategies for scalability. So the sizing of the VSpecs start at 50 and go up to 100, 125 to 250 VMs and beyond. And it's really kind of a natural assumption that these are going to grow with the company. So we've left the proper spacing in our elevation diagrams and whatnot to be able to take it from one layer to the next. So from 100 to 125 and beyond. And that enables, and we also enable them to do those upgrades with an additional cable kit or an upgrade kit. So what we call no downtime upgrades, and that really means something both the partner and the end user, because a typical deployment where that hasn't been thought of in advance, you often go in and find that there's no space for a server. So now, by the time you're done, you've disconnected every piece of equipment and reconnected it to add one more server, 2 more servers, and some additional storage. So having that thought process, and again, the validation that comes along with that, the no downtime upgrades, really means before the purchase until after it's deployed, Panduit has provided value around the VSpecs deployment.
Yeah. I mean, this is why Panduit is such a good partner for us in VSpecs, because I didn't understand most of what Steve just said. I don't know what an elevation diagram is. I know that I need solutions to support virtual desktop, to support applications, to support virtual servers, and I know the sizes and the technology that needs to be there. These are things that don't occur to me, right? So this is an excellent partnership where they understand not only what it needs to look like on day one, but how that solution is going to grow. So it works very well for us.
Well, I don't know if your joint solutions come with any guarantees of lowering the IT manager's blood pressure by any percentages, but clearly I can see where, in terms of in terms of alleviating a lot of the deployment stresses that our survey showed, clearly these solutions target that very, very well. Any final thoughts before we sign off here, Chad?
No, as I said, I think Panduit is an ideal partner for us because they really accelerate these solutions to market. They're able to clearly add value in areas that are their core competency, which are not necessarily our core competencies. Right. And we know that the partners appreciate that acceleration. They appreciate the differentiation and the co-branding.
And that's the essence of a great partnership. Steve's last word is yours.
Yeah, I would just echo Chad's statements. I think we all agree the ideal and optimal way to deploy a vSPEX is really in a packaged fashion, where it comes in a complete cabinet, converged infrastructure, all within a validated, optimized solution. So I think together what we're bringing to the table is something that meets exactly that need and brings an offering to the partner that is something that just makes, again, their lives easier, their lives, as you mentioned, the IT manager will sleep better at night knowing that something has been deployed in a prescribed manner, both from the logical expert and the physical expert, and that it will perform at the highest possible level.
Chad, Steve, thank you both very much for joining me here today. And on behalf of our webcast sponsor, Panduit, I'm Bill Liberis from IDG saying thank you very much for joining us here today as well.